Behaviour just announced some absolutely huge quality of life changes that are coming to Dead by Daylight in the future. So let's take a look at all of them revealed in Phase 1 of the changes, which will happen from April to June, and Phase 2, which will happen from July to December of this year. The first thing that they did announce is that the PTB release, which was scheduled for tomorrow, is now delayed for 3 weeks, as well as all rifts, events, modifiers and even skin collections. This means that the PTB date has been pushed way back to the 11th of March. This was done in order to focus more on the current problems of Dead by Daylight and in order to give the developers more time to fix issues with the game before adding new stuff. In other words, this is finally the Operation Health so many of us have been asking them to do. And this is a totally understandable and respectable delay too. So the first change that they announced is the surrender state that is supposed to help with player frustrations that can happen on both sides. As of now, the only way to surrender as both players is when all remaining survivors are being slugged in the case of survivors, or when all the remaining survivors are bots in the case of killers. Once any of this happens, players will be able to surrender, which ends the trial, gives you the blood points you earned, and also you don't get the DC penalty. Now, for those of you already taking the torches and pitchforks out, this is not their solution to the slugging issue. This is the first implementation they will do, but slugging itself will have some changes on Phase 2 of Operation Health, and we still don't know what those changes might be. So this is not meant to be a solution to slugging. This is just an option for players to get out of matches that are very frustrating, like it was the case with one of my most pettiest experiences in Dead by Daylight, where killers intentionally bleed survivors on the ground. Slugging by itself is an inherent tactic in Dead by Daylight that can be used for a competitive advantage. That's a fact, and this change won't prevent it. This is only for those killers that want to bleed out all 4 survivors at 5 gens, which is not done for any competitive advantage, and this is just done to make the player experience miserable, since they don't get anything and the blood points they earn is a waste of time. For that situation, I am very happy that players at least get the option to leave without having to waste their time against a petty killer. I do wish that we as killers could surrender at 2 bots instead of all remaining survivors, because I wouldn't want to be playing a match where 50% of the players are just the PC. My only question is if the surrender option is allowed when you are slugging a survivor for the 4K, or when you get a massive snowball in the endgame by slugging everyone with killers like Twins, Plague or Oni, which are things that can happen naturally in a DbD match. If survivors can surrender, that means you lose out on the points of hooking them, which can be bad. The next thing being added is gamma settings for both PC players and console players, which is huge, especially for the latter. A lot of casual console players play on a TV in the living room, and going against killers like the Dredge can be a literal nightmare. This will also make filters not as necessary for some of the players in the community which need a brighter game for accessibility. The next change is what I am looking forward to the most, and that is the Go Next prevention mechanic. Going next is basically giving up on the game at the start of the match or during the game because they don't like the killer they're going against, they don't like the map that they're playing, or because their ego cannot handle being absolutely rolled on the first chase with a C-tier killer. This has become a huge problem in the community because going next prevents survivors from taking the DC penalty and also leaves players without a bot, which were introduced in order to help mitigate a disconnect. So now, when the game detects that someone is intentionally going next, those players will get a DC penalty and lose an entire grade, which is actually a huge penalty. As compensation, they will also reward players that stick around and keep playing matches even when they look completely lost. For that, they are making an emblem-based multiplier that will reward players with extra blood points for their next match, and with a bonus that stacks across consecutive trials. This is fantastic, and it might actually help with the Go Next epidemic. I have always said it, if you choose to queue up a match in Dead by Daylight only to end up going next because you don't like getting a school merchant, you should stop playing the game or uninstall it. You are the problem of the game, and if you're not having fun in 90% of your matches, it's time to take a break and play something else. Doom queuing with a bad mentality will not help you become happier or better at Dead by Daylight, and this is not exclusive to DbD. It's something that these players should learn for literally every single online player versus player game. My only concern with this mechanic is if it will punish players that give up on Hook to give the hatch to the remaining survivor, because this is something that I believe is part of the game and should stay. If this change is indeed punishing those scenarios, then this, combined with the next change, is going to make endgame scenarios a bit bad. After 8 years, it's finally here. Getting 3 crows in your player will make you lose collision, so no more body blocking ever. Additionally, once a player has crows, their aura will be revealed immediately to the killers in order to prevent cases where survivors intentionally hide around the map in order to wait out for the match to end forcibly. I am very happy with this change. But once again, if the second last survivor cannot give up on Hook to give the hatch to the remaining one without getting a DC penalty, this means that in order for them to get the hatch, they will have to wait up to 145 seconds in order to get it, which is a lot of time doing nothing but hiding. This might be the most controversial change for me personally, because map offerings are no longer a guarantee. Now, they only buff the chances for a map to appear by 20%, and it doesn't stack. This is a fantastic change for many players, and in a lot of scenarios, it is great for sure. My only issue is limited to content creation. Various builds in the game require specific maps in order to get them, so now, with it only being 20%, it is more frustrating to make gameplay focused content. But it is what it is, and the enjoyment of the casual as well as normal player base is much more important than the content creator side. The spawn rules are changing, and now survivors will spawn all together instead of separate. This is important for the early game and should make low tier killers significantly more playable, as before, having survivors spawn in different parts of the map meant that you would lose generators for sure at the beginning of the match, or they would have more chances of finding an early Hex totem. Additionally, the Shroud offerings will be changed too, which are the offerings that allow survivors to spawn together or far away from the killer. Behaviour also announced that more measures will be taken to prevent AFK bots from existing. For those unaware, it's those killer players that stand in the match hitting the air or doing nothing as an invisible wraith in order to grind XP for iridescent shards to maybe later sell the accounts, since XP in this game is based on time spent during the match. Good change overall. They also announced a way to spend a lot of blood points at once, which can be fantastic. However, I would love if they also allowed us to put certain items as priority. I don't want none of those brown or green blood point offerings. I want cakes and party streamers or specific add-ons or items. We will see how this improves the blood point spending times. A quest system previously announced is coming to Dead by Daylight. As of now, they will be reworking the challenge system as well as the daily rituals to reduce the grind, make it easier to earn rewards, and increase the level of fun. I hope that this means that all characters and perks will have individual challenges tied to them, just like how each weapon and item in Call of Duty has their own medals. This is something I have asked for years, and truly I hope that this is what they mean with the quest system. And finally, the last change they are introducing is to allow players to see their own perk loadouts in the lobby, and also adding extra perk loadout slots, which is a nice quality of life change. I do wish this also meant that you can see your survivors' teammates' perks too, as that would help in solo queue. As of now, I think seeing your perks in the lobby is kinda irrelevant. And that's about it for the changes upcoming in Phase 1 of the Operation Health. And now let's talk a bit about the changes coming to Phase 2, which will be revealed in the anniversary broadcast in May. According to the roadmap, anti-slugging measures will be implemented into the game, as well as continued improvements to anti-tunneling and anti-camping, which I am personally a bit worried about. An MMR update is also happening, which can be absolutely huge, but we have no info about what it is. Then, a map and key rework is coming, hopefully making those items significantly more useful and on the level of medkits and toolboxes. And now, in terms of quality of life changes, console players will be allowed to use mouse and keyboard, custom matches will have improvements, which is very exciting to hear, accessibility features will be added, finally we are getting prestige rewards, and also apparently some reduced login steps, which I am unsure on what that means. On top of all these changes, Behaviour has also said that various long-standing issues will be fixed, which hopefully means fixes to Spirit, Twins, Houndmaster, Knight and Skull Merchant bugs, a fix to the Flashbang sound issue, a fix to the Autohaven and Macmillan's maps spawning extra pallets, and even more. What change out of these are you looking forward to the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.